With us now, we have columnist and deputy editorial page editor at the Washington Post, Ruth Marcus is here. Also, former editor-in-chief of USA Today and author of the new book, That's What She Said, What Men Need to Know and Women Need to Tell Them About Working Together, Joanne Lipman. Ruth, let's first of all talk about how the people close to the President of the United States that are working with him now and who've worked with him in the past are shocked, even knowing Donald Trump the way they do, that he managed to take what should have been a one-day story and turn it into a six-day story with his tweeting and his insistence on defending a man who's been accused of spousal abuse by two ex-wives. It continues.
I don't actually see why that's shocking, Joe. It's entirely of a piece with the way Donald Trump has responded to pretty much every allegation of sexual abuse, sexual harassment, domestic violence against everybody, every man that he's associated with, except for the ones that happen to be Democratic donors like Harvey Weinstein. In that case, he doesn't worry about due process at all. He just wants the money given back and everything else. But his initial instinct is just to say, well, nothing's been proven. And so Roy Moore is another great example of that. And so let's move on. So, of course, he did that. I wasn't surprised at all.
Joanne, in your book here, you talk about how part of the problem with sexual harassment and gender inequality is that men tend to underestimate the severity of the problem. And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about what you dug up there and why exactly it is that tends to happen.
Sure, yeah. Actually, when you look at men in general, they do not perceive sexual harassment in the way that women do. There was actually a study that was done with couples where they asked the man and the woman, they said to the man, has your partner ever been sexually harassed? And the majority of the men said no. The majority of the women said, yes, I have. I've been touched inappropriately, etc. So there's this lack of perception. The other issue that I think is really important here to understand is there is a much larger impact that goes beyond in any organization that tolerates abuse and sexual harassment at the top. Also is an organization that you can be pretty sure marginalizes women throughout the rest of the organization, underpays, undervalues, marginalizes. And if you look at the current administration, for example, the gender wage gap in the Trump administration is 37%, which is not only larger than the national average, it's triple what it was under the Obama administration. This reflects every action that this organization takes. So you even look at what the Trump administration has done with the Obama rule that was he had put instated a equal pay rule, which the Trump administration has since rolled back. So there's really major implications here.
Hey, Victoria, picking up on that point, if you imagine the White House as a workplace and the tone being set by the boss at the top, he's been credibly accused by many women of sexual abuse or misconduct. How does that ripple down to the rest of the staff in terms of it being a workplace and the tone being set from the top and what's permitted and not permitted in that workplace?
I mean, in general, it's a hostile work environment for women. And what that means on an individual level is, as a woman, you feel constant anxiety. You're always looking over your shoulder. You're wondering, you're playing defense against what is going to come next. But, you know, within all of this, I do think that there is a silver lining in that I think that we are going to see a Year of the Woman 2.0 because of what has happened in the Trump administration and because of all the rhetoric that women are angry, they're frustrated, they're running in record numbers, and my hope is that we turn out in record numbers as well.
So, Ruth, we've obviously had a White House in chaos since January the 20th of last year. Now we have a chief of staff who was supposed to bring order to that chaos, now mired in his own chaotic scandal. What's next for John Kelly?
That is really probably up to Donald Trump, who, as much as he said it a lot on TV, doesn't really like to say you're fired directly to his staff. And there's not a ton of obvious candidates to take General Kelly's place. The real irony is if this domestic abuse Rob Porter scandal ends up with the departure of John Kelly is that it would be ousted for sort of the weirdest of reasons. I wrote over the weekend about John Kelly as a kind of mini-me of Donald Trump, the second worst person in the White House, really, because as much as he was supposed to bring order, he's just really mirrored and exemplified some of Donald Trump's own worst instincts. And this last episode is just an example of that. So we'll see what happens to him. But I think one thing that we know is it's going to be a White House in chaos, whether he's there or not.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And of course, we're going to see what happens this week. It's supposed to be Infrastructure Week at the Trump White House, but I suspect it's going to be a week instead where we see John Kelly thrown under the bus. That does it for us this morning. We're going to be live from Washington, D.C. tomorrow morning, but Stephanie Ruhle picks up the coverage right now. Stephanie.
Thanks so much, Joe.